Thank you, Ambassador. At that point, can I turn now to economic cooperation and bring in my colleague here, Ana Leia. Leia, you have some questions precisely about COVID cooperation and trade in general. Could you ask your questions, please?
Hi, good morning, Ambassador. You mentioned about the possible cooperation on COVID-19. Reports earlier mentioned that Pakistan is pushing for the development of a single-dose COVID vaccine. May we ask an update on this?
To be honest, I have not been to Pakistan for the last 1.5 years. And I have been settling down here. I only found my home last week. I was in a hotel with my 3 daughters and wife. So I have not been very regular on my updates from Pakistan these days, except the official communications, which do not mention much about COVID-related research. And we have received some circulars that we have developed some ventilators, some medicines. Pakistan is one of the most cheapest competitive medicines producer. Our pharma sector is doing good. And I look forward that Pakistani medicines should have more avenues here because they are affordable. And your president has passed last year an act of affordable medicine for everyone. I don't have much information about single dose. What I know is that in the initial days last year when COVID had started, after March, around June o'clock, Pakistan had experimented something about plasma. Those who had been affected by COVID, antibodies, we had done some research on that. Blood taken from the affectees, antibodies, and our scientific institutions were working on that.
Just a follow up, will there be a possibility of like technologies transfer, if not vaccine, for that plasma you earlier mentioned?
There is a scope, yes. The only thing is that you see, even the developed countries are in a struggling phase. COVID is such a novel phenomena that no country developed even has been able to understand it fully. We even don't know what is going to be the impact of the vaccination, long-term impact on us. It is going to change RNA of human body. Some people have had some bad experiences in European Union, embolism, thrombosis, brain-related hemorrhages and deaths in Germany, AstraZeneca vaccine. So even today, these people are getting vaccines. We are all going to go through it, but we don't know 2 years down the road what is going to be its impact on our smell sense, on our feet, on our body limbs. Really, we don't know. Think we are doing things. This is the only vaccination that has been prepared in hurried manner to save the humanity. The way this has come, and now unfortunately these variants, the way they are transmuting and coming and affecting. Nobody had last year wondered that the maximum peak number of 5,000 of Philippines would turn to 15,000 on 5th April this year, 3 times. Had we ever thought? Last year, I remember early this year, people were saying, we have been able to see for 1 year COVID. It is manageable now with medicines. Vaccinations are coming. Hopefully 2021 would be a relaxed year in many ways, with masks, with our medication, vaccination. All people were thinking, and suddenly we have now these new variants. So it is something we really don't know where we are going to end up ultimately.
What are you seeing on what are you hearing from the ground? You mentioned earlier that Pakistan, like the Philippines, has received vaccines from China. I assume that's Sinovac. Here, we've been encouraging people to take whatever vaccines available, but how is it performing in Pakistan from what you've heard?
So actually, last week I remember Russian Foreign Minister was in Islamabad also, Mr. Sergei Lavrov. And Pakistan appreciated the Sputnik 5 vaccine. And I think both countries have decided to also see that we should also try that one. That would be a new addition in Pakistan. Apparently, press reports say that we are interested in a Sputnik also, Sputnik 5. But at the moment, AstraZeneca and I think there is some age group related differences. 50 plus people are getting Sinovac and 60 plus people have got the AstraZeneca vaccine in the initial phases. So there are some vaccines which are suitable for some age groups, but we have to see how it rolls out ultimately for the masses in the long run.
Sir, jumping off from what you said earlier, you said Pakistan is strong in terms of pharmaceuticals. Are there some firms from your end that are willing to invest in the Philippines, especially now that President Duterte recently signed the second package of the tax reform, which lowers the corporate income tax?
I have had some meetings with pharma producers. Uh, there are a few Pakistani farms here, and I think one was the Seher, the biggest one so far that I saw. They are importing 350 pharma products here, and some initial medicines related to COVID also they were importing last year. These sprays, masks, this 95 mask, N95 mask, and so I see last year's figure. I see that our cooperation has increased. That we had $22,000, actually 22 billion medicaments from Pakistan here.
Mhm.
This was the third most important after cement and rice, the third most important component of our exports, which stood at 120 million US dollars last year. Medicaments or pharma products are third largest product from Pakistan. And I have met 3-4 big producers, but they are also producing certain things from Pakistan. Some are being manufactured in combination with Chinese companies, some with Singapore. So there is this variant of productivity, but there is a lot of scope for Pakistani investors to invest in Philippines pharma industry to make these medicines. Because when I compare the prices here, they are at least 3 to 5 times more expensive than what we pay in Pakistan. Let me tell you frankly. And you are also a populous country. I feel pain when I see that I needed some medications, they are not available here. Just one example, my wife's medication, which is called Azil Sartan. I went to Mercury stores this weekend. All medical stores said only 2 stores have in Mindanao and Cebu. And entire Philippines has lost the stock of Azil Sartan, which is called Edarbi. It's a common blood pressure vaccination. Compared to this, in Pakistan, if you go to any small village, rural village, distant village, at midnight, you will find this available on over the counter, this kind of medication, which is also dangerous again, but it's a blood pressure medicine, you can have it. And the price would be 5 times lesser than what you pay here. So I think there's a lot of scope that Pakistani investors should come. I have talked with them, some of them. They said actually the procedure with the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, requires there are certain conditions which need to be met before we can really have this thing, pharmas brought here. You have very stringent conditions on pharmaceuticals. And there is a firm called in Geneva, Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme, PICS. FDA allows pharma exports from a PIX member country. And Pakistan's Pharma Manufacturers Association, I'm going to request them, and Pakistan Drug Regulatory Authority, DRAP, Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, I've asked them to see if we can have membership of this PIX, International Pharma Inspection Cooperation Scheme. Once we become member, then FDA automatically allows us to import medications from Pakistan. This certification is waived. But at the moment, what we would see is that there was a group of FDA officials to go to Pakistan to inspect our laboratories. And unfortunately, because of COVID, that visit was postponed at the last minute. They went in 2019, but there was another follow-up visit. If that had taken place, I would have seen more Pakistani farmers during that last 1 year, when this country really needed much more medicines because of COVID and other health-related issues. So I look forward that as soon as things ease out, FDA people should be able to visit Pakistan, and Pakistan should also try to work to get registered with Pharma Inspection Cooperation Scheme so that we can ease out more investment of Pakistani pharma investors here in this country.
Sir, just to clarify, no schedule yet on the next visit for the FDA officials, correct?
To be honest, at the moment, we don't have any schedule because you have stringent lockdowns. You have there are no flight connections easily available. Pakistan is also combating with this challenge, this renewed challenge of COVID. We have reimposed lockdowns, smart lockdowns we call, not like here, but smart lockdowns in some of the cities. We had actually opened our schools from 1st March after having seen a few hundred cases a day in a country of 220 million people. We had opened our schools after last year's March, on 1st March. My daughter went to join our medical college in Pakistan on 1st March from here. And within 12 days, in 3 provinces out of 4, they had to close these schools again. Some at a 50% ratio, some fully closed, and now they have fully closed in 3 of the 4 provinces in Pakistan. So things have gone bad in terms of numbers of COVID. Although it is 5,000 figure, but again, it is unaffordable to send children to school. As soon as things ease out in Pakistan to receive delegations, and also from here to send delegations, we look forward that FTA should visit Pakistan.
Sir, just one last question from my end. Since Pakistan has been one of the country's trading partners, and I remember in 2018, there was a mention of conducting a possible studies for a preferential trade agreement. May I ask an update on this, sir?
To be honest, Pakistan has not been able to proceed ahead on FTA because we never had any joint economic commission we have established between our 2 countries a few years ago. In fact, almost a decade ago, if I'm not wrong. But the first meeting of this Joint Economic Commission was held in February 2018. And they decided some steps. And we were to see more Pakistani products here and Philippine products in Pakistan. But there was no follow-up, not much follow-up. Yes, we had an MOU in 2018 by my predecessor in agriculture. And we have seen some rice exports. But unfortunately, last year, there was some tarification law on rice, especially in 2019, February 2019. This new law halted Pakistani rice, which was coming here, 45 million US dollars rice between 2018 and 19. It went down to $4.5 million Pakistani rice import last year in June. Our financial year went closed. 1/10 of the remaining rice remained. When I came here in November, there was only 0 rice coming from Pakistan from July till October. So I'm glad that on 19th March, I received a letter from the Secretary Severino, Rodolfo Severino of the DTI. And he was very kind. He has sent to me a note that we are working, we have deliberated in the cabinet about relaxing rules for Pakistani rice import. And you will be given ASEAN-like treatment, preferential treatment in the import of rice. It is in the cabinet, president has to authorize it, and Pakistani rice exporters are keen to export their rice very soon. The importers there are keen to buy Pakistani rice, basmati rice. And so we look forward to an opening in rice. And quinoa is another citrus fruit product, which comes here regularly. In February, you will see Karachi quinoa in Landmark and other malls, Pakistani quinoa, citrus fruit mandarin. And this year, I'm happy that instead of usual 1,000 containers, we had 1,500 containers of quinoa. So I have seen a surge of 50% in quinoa, which makes up 14.5% of imports of Philippines citrus in a year. Pakistan contributes 15% in Philippines citrus imports every year. So these are good developments. But you are right, we need to come to a point where we should have some preferential trade. We already have it in Malaysia. When I was Deputy High Commissioner in 2009, in 2008, we had comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Malaysia. In Indonesia, we also have similar arrangement. In 2016, I was Director General East Asia Pacific Countries in Foreign Office. We were negotiating with Thailand, free trade agreement. We already have with China also. But I think most important in these days is what has been accomplished last year in November, which is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between 15 countries, ASEAN plus 5. And I'm going to recommend Pakistan to become part of RCEP. Once we are in that group, automatically we will have all the ASEAN-related tariff reductions as well as between all the 15 countries. So our emphasis, I would request them and they will study RCEP procedures. And if we can join that, this automatically takes care of our bilateral FTAs then. There's no need then once we join the RCEP. Let's see how things work out in the days ahead, but we'll keep doing our best.
Thank you.
Ambassador, I noticed behind you, you have a portrait of Al Jinnah.
Yeah.
Normally, ambassadors have a portrait of their prime minister, but Al Jinnah is a fascinating character. Maybe Filipinos should know more about him. What can you tell us briefly about this historical figure?
Now, Muhammad Ali Jinnah is called the father of Pakistan, father of nation. He was a gentleman born in Karachi, Pakistan in 1876. An ordinary boy who went for studies in London. in those, after doing his 10th graduation matriculation, and he studied bar at law at Lincoln's Inn. And he came back and he started his practices in that United India. And in 1919, in the decade between 1910, from 1909 onwards, he started his career in politics by becoming, he was given the title of Ambassador of Hindu-Muslim Unity. He was a learned leader. He had studied like Nehru in England. And there were few people who could afford those kind of educations. Graceful person, principled stance, legal background, solid firm background, always following the right meritorious path. Whether it goes even against him, he would say, this belongs to me, it's okay. This doesn't belong to me, it is his. So they had, Mr. Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian leader, had given, and the Congress had given him the title of Ambassador of Hindu-Muslim Unity. In 1909, British had introduced some autonomy type reforms in subcontinent, Minto-Morley reforms, and Jinnah became vocal for having these rights for Indians, not for Muslims only. And then he went on with his practice as well as the right causes of the Indians for their liberation, for their autonomy in those days in 20s and 30s. Then there was another great leader which was called Allama Iqbal, the poet of the East, we call him. He's buried in Lahore. In 1930, for the first time, Allama Iqbal gave the idea of Pakistan, that Muslims of Indian subcontinent who form majority in certain provinces, which are now in Pakistan, as well as the Bangladesh, which was East Pakistan until 1971, they should have their own autonomous republics within India to carry on their lives, the tradition. The way you have given those permissions to Mindanao Muslims, they can have their Sharia laws, their marriages, their legal rights and other things. So he said something like this on this pattern for Muslims in Muslim majority provinces. So he was the first to give the idea of Pakistan. We call him the Iqbal who gave the idea of Pakistan. But then who matured this idea was Jinnah. Jinnah tried his level best to have rights for Indian Muslims, but in 1930s, he was disappointed by the politics of Pakistan, by the politics of the Indians, especially Hindus. So he left for England again. Then he was brought back in 1934 to India. By Iqbal wrote him letters, Indian leaders wrote him letters that you are the right person at this moment. And he carried on. In 1940, under this banner of this party called All India Muslim League, which was founded in 1906 in Dhaka, nowadays Bangladesh capital. This was All India Muslim League. And under this banner, in the Minar Pakistan, you have seen there is a minaret in Lahore. It is called Minar or Tower of Pakistan. Under this place, they adopted, thousands of Muslims from all parts of India came, and they adopted a resolution called Pakistan Resolution. 23rd March was it. So we observe 23rd March as Pakistan Day. Our national day is 23rd March, not 14 August 1947, when we got actual independence. So Jinnah led the struggle with the Britishers to get a separate homeland for Muslims of South Asia based on their separate identity, culture, mores, rights, food, cuisine, practices, and the fearing the Hindu domination and the way 1937 elections had dealt a blow to the Muslims of subcontinent. Muslims realized they cannot live under Hindu domination. And now you see what has happened in India now. Under Modi's Hindutva policy, they are lynching somebody who takes meat of the cow. They lynch a Hindu because they say he has vivisected our mother. Holy cow is the mother for them. It is some religious deity for them. They have denied citizenship rights to Indians. Thousands of years old Indians in 7 states of Assam and others. In Kashmir, what they are doing under demographic. So this Indian secularism is really nowhere to be seen under Mr. Modi. And the way they are treating their minorities, including 200 million Muslims, almost the same number that live in Pakistan, there are in India's 1.some billion Muslims population, there are 200 million Muslims. They even don't acknowledge Taj Mahal. If you see Indian tourism brochures, because it was built by Muslim Mughals rule, the historic, the famous Mughal rule, Mughals, Taj Mahal. When you see their brochures, they say it is an icon of Muslim identity, Muslim culture, a Muslim ruler's wife buried there. Shah Jahan's wife, Mughal emperor. So they are trying to detach themselves from everything that is Muslim, that it's a heritage, it's your past heritage. So Muslim rule, they have some fears and phobias. Why Muslims rule this part of the world in a magnificent way, like Ottomans did from Turkey. The Mughal Empire was also worth reckoning in those days. And it was really cosmopolitan. Akbar had Buddhists, Hindus. Most of his ministers were Hindus. He was a Muslim. So you see, it was cosmopolitan like Ottoman Empire. But they have phobias of those days. So they don't want anything related to Muslims. That's why Muslims are being suppressed. Other minorities are being suppressed. That's what we don't really. And it is good that we Pakistanis feel independent, freely living in a Muslim country of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. That Jinnah, under his able leadership, was able to. Believe me, if there was no Jinnah, there was no Pakistan. Although he died within 1 year, but historians say that he kept his tuberculosis hidden from the British and Hindu leaders. Had they known that this gentleman is going to die after 1 year of independence, they might have delayed partition plans. So Pakistan is a God's gift through Jinnah to the Muslims of South Asia. We respect him, we love him. No Pakistani has ever two opinions about Jinnah. Despite that, he never had a beard. Despite that, he was secular. Despite that, the very first address
very modern.
His address was, you are free to go to your mosques, to your churches, to your temples. You, for the state, you are only Pakistan. Our first foreign minister was not a Muslim, Mr. Zafrullah. Many of our leaders in those days were not Muslim, although it was the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. But the equality of rights for citizens of Pakistan was the motto of this man who believed in religion and Islamic values, but who believed in secular human values, which never had contrast or clash with Islam's values. So he believed in Islam, true Islam, which gave liberty to every person, not only to Muslims, but every person who was citizen of Pakistan. That's why we respect him. We love him.
Ambassador, this is my last question. How would you like Filipinos to think about Pakistan? What would be what should be the images that we see in our mind's eye when we think about Pakistan? What is your objective as ambassador in influencing that image and that relationship between our peoples?
To be honest, let me tell you, Pakistanis and Filipinos, what I have seen in the last 5 months, although I have only experience of Malaysia, I was Deputy High Commissioner from 2009 to 12. This region, this second time I've landed. And we have so many ways to look at each other. We need to revive our cultural exchange program. And we have national heritage. Our both countries we have been sufferers of colonial rule. I told you, we are most resilient nations. We have suffered from many things. We have been victims of many occupations, many things that we have shared in many ways, even in the anti-communist experiences when we joined together Pakistan from that foreign with Seattle and our Prime Minister visiting here. So we have felt in many points, you were also in your initial phases after independence. We need to see those things. Then what I've seen is we are hardworking, resilient nations. What I see is when Pakistani and Filipino marriages have become very common phenomenon nowadays, especially in Dubai, UAE, and experts from both countries happen to be together for employment. So they are very proving, Phil-Pak marriages are proving very successful these days. And I've seen some frequently more Filipinos in Pakistan. My sister's house, I went, there are Filipino ladies working there. I see in international hotels in Pakistan, some Filipino experts. I see IT experts from Philippines in Pakistan. I have seen in the past 2 decades, some engineers, scientists on our road railway projects, international projects funded, but some Filipino engineers, high-grade technicians, engineers, scientists working in Pakistan. There are around, I think, few hundred couples married from Pakistan to Filipinos. Here I see some Pakistani businessmen happily married with Filipino wives, here happily living in Philippines for decades now. So I think we should have some common production. TV, Pakistani TV and Filipino TV should produce some movies like we have done with China and some other countries on our experiences, these cross-cultural experiences, and then they can be broadcast with dubbing here or there. You have Metro Manila Film Festival here. And I would request Pakistani film authorities and students and to bring a commercial films for that can be displayed here with English dubbing or Filipino Tagalog dubbing. Then tourism potential, both of our countries have abundant natural beauty. And I see that if we promote, although we have been, to be honest, we are developing countries, our countries don't have that per capita income to spend like rich countries, tourists spend. But within modest means, Pakistan is a country, I told someone, if you have $150, you can spend 30 days affording a accommodation as well as food, and $150 for a whole month. Pakistan is still such a economical country in terms of living. So when this pandemic eases out, we should try to exchange this tourism potential of our two countries. PIA used to fly here until 2002. PIA stopped after that. My priority would be that either PIA flies here or Philippine Air, when things ease out after COVID, should travel to Pakistan. It gives them easy connection. Pakistan has every 1 hour, we have some connection to UAE, to Saudi Arabia, Jeddah, Riyadh. Our, I think 4 million expat workers in Saudi Arabia, 2 million in UAE, 1 million in Qatar, Bahrain, Oman. So Filipino workers also fly to that region. If Philippine Air goes to Karachi or PIA takes them to Karachi, they have easy connections for UAE also. I think these are some of the steps, some promotional videos. We need to see each other more. We need to come into action with, and I had some movies played, Pakistani movies in Malaysia with dubbing. I would try to see if I can bring some good movies here. Similarly, I would request your embassy when I go to Islamabad, ambassador, and your honorary consul general in Karachi, that some Filipino movies, dramas, and with typical true culture, they should be displayed in Pakistani channels so that people come to know each other more and these ties are strengthened.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kazi, Ambassador. I appreciate the time you gave us today. This COVID situation is really disrupting a number of things. Normally we do these roundtables in person, but hopefully this will end soon and that we can meet with you soon after that. Good luck to you, sir, in your work as ambassador to the Philippines, and we hope that the relations between our country and yours will be much better during your term and afterwards. Thank you.
I thank you so much to you especially and to all your colleagues, respected colleagues, distinguished colleagues. My duty has always been not only to call on dignitaries when I present credentials or go in any country, but to visit the local print and electronic media offices personally, along with my press counselor. This is my duty. I'm duty bound to visit to your premises, to pay my respects to you, to learn about your work, and to have these relations. I'm glad that on Pakistan Day, you bring out such beautiful supplements. I'm glad to each one of your staff, and I'm looking forward to the day when I can come personally to your premises, and also I can invite, I have hired a modest house now in a local region, diplomatic area, and I look forward to invite you for a Pakistani biryani and traditional meal someday at my residence very soon. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, Ambassador. Dr. Kazi, thank you.